Hello, everyone. Laszlo speaking. I will be your host today. This call is being recorded. Welcome on board. Thanks very much for joining the PMP exam 2021 journey. The good news is that we do have Cornelius Fichtner from the United States with us. And Cornelius is going to take us for a pretty exciting journey. He is going to talk about the PMP exam 2021. If you do have any technical difficulties or if you do experience any technical difficulties, please use the chat window. I'm going to be here with you, but without further ado, I'd like to pass over to Cornelius. Cornelius, first of all, thanks very much for accepting my invitation. It's good to have you here. And you guys, this is going to be a live show, and you had a chance to ask many questions from Cornelius, and he's going to spend the next 57 minutes on the 2021 PMP exam. Over to you, Cornelius.
All right. Thank you so much, Laszlo. And thank you, everybody, for joining us today. So the 2021 PMP exam, that is our topic today. If you have any questions during this presentation, please use the chat window. I just pulled the chat window over onto my other monitor. I hope you can see this. So what I will be doing is when somebody types in a question, I will move the chat window over and we'll look at that question together, and I try to answer that as quickly as possible. As Laszlo have said, my name is Cornelius Fichtner. I'm originally from Switzerland, now live in the United States, and I have been a PMP trainer since about 2007, 2008, something like that. And many of you may know me either from my PMP exam prep course called the PM Prepcast, or the Project Management Podcast, which I started in 2005, has now over 450 interviews published on the web. So what are the learning goals for today? What can you expect? So at the end of this presentation, you will be able to name criteria, requirements, exam content, as well as the policies for the exam that is starting next year. And you will be able also to identify PMI authorized training partners, instructors, and courses. And the second one is really important because if you want the official course, then you have to know how to look for it. Here is our agenda for today. We're going to start out with a rapid fire Q&A. I have about 20 or so prepared questions for you. Thank you, everybody, for submitting those pre this event. So I took many of your questions and put those into slides. Some questions that we received were a bit too technical, too much detail into the course material from PMI. I've chosen not to include those. And then after that, we'll jump into the 2021 exam itself. We'll talk about the PMP exam content outline, the Authorized Training Partner Program, the official PMI developed course that is now being taught by almost everybody around the world. I'll give you some exam strategy and training materials. We'll talk about the online exam, and then we'll end everything with take an action and take a course. I don't just want to present this to you, I also want to give you recommendations in regards to what you should be doing now. And there will be recommendations, if I remember this correctly, for both instructors. So if you're a PMP trainer, I have recommendations for you and actions, as well as potential candidates who want to take the exam. Okay, and now we'll get going with the rapid fire Q&A. And as I said, rapid fire, I really mean very, very quickly. We should be done with this 20 slides in about 10 minutes or so, I hope. The biggest question that many people have, is there a new edition of the PMBOK guide that I have to study? No, there is not. No new edition. Use the 6th edition for the PMP exam if you are preparing for the PMP exam. As a reminder, today is November 11th, 2020. So this changes at some point in the future. If you're watching this as a recording 3 years from now, yes, there is a new PMBOK guide, but as of right now, there is not. When will the PMBOK guide 7th edition be published? PMI has said either in Q4 of 2020, so within the next 60 days or so, or then in Q1 of 2021. But for the PMP exam, use the PMBOK Guide 6th edition at this time, and just keep your eyes open in regards to when do I have to switch, okay? Not just on the day when it comes out, you don't have to switch. Keep using the 6th edition until you hear clear messages that say, now is the time to forget about the 6th edition and go to the 7th edition. Is there a new PMP exam content outline, the ECO? That is the document that defines what is on the PMP exam, the curriculum, if you wish. Yes, there is a new exam content outline. We will jump into that in more detail later on in part 2 of this presentation. When will the exam change? It's really quite simple. The last date for the current exam, the 2020 exam, is the 31st of December of this year. And then the first date when you can take the new exam is the 2nd of January next year. So if you had hoped to take the exam on the 1st of January next year, then I'm really sorry, I have to disappoint you. You won't be able to do that, because that's the date when PMI and Pearson VUE change over from the old exam to the new exam. What is the biggest difference between the 2020 and the 2021 exams? Well, there are two major differences. First of all, currently there are 5 domains on the exam. You know those: initiating, planning, executing, monitoring, controlling, and closing. And in the new exam content outline, there are only 3 domains: people, process, and business environment. So that's the first major change. The second major change is that today, all questions on the PMP exam, almost all questions on the PMP exam, are plan-driven, predictive project management approach focused. And on the new exam, 50% of the questions on the exam will be agile. Actually, it's more agile and hybrid, so it's a mix is also possible there, but it's 50-50, 50 predictive, 50 agile and hybrid. Is the 2020 exam more difficult? Indeed, yes, it is more difficult, because we have 50% agile questions, which means you now have to know even more. Other frameworks, other methodologies are being brought into the exam. And we also have this new third business environment domain. Remember, people, process, that matches quite nicely to what we have today, the 5 domains, but the business environment domain, that one is definitely new. Is my 2020 training enough to pass the 2021 exam? I get this question almost every day at the moment, because so many people are worried about, maybe not passing this year, then having to retake it next year. The answer to this question is 85% yes, should be. We compared our current course to the 2021 exam content outline. It's about 85% that covers it. And well, I think I'll talk more about, how to upgrade yourself. It's really relatively easy to do. So we'll look at that later on. The biggest mistake that people make when they think about this changeover is the question, but what if I fail this year? What do I have to do next year? That's the wrong approach. Your approach should always be not, what if I fail? What do I have to do next year? You have to turn this around and say, what do I have to do in order to pass this year? Not worry about next year. Nice to have a plan B, but your primary focus should be on, what do I do to pass this year? Which brings us to the next question. Should I take the exam now or later? It is November 11th, 2020. It is nearly impossible, unless you make taking the PMP exam your full-time job, to pass the exam still in this year. Okay? So if you have not yet started your PMP exam studies, don't try. There are so many people ahead of you in the process. You will most likely not even be able to find a seat to take the PMP exam this year. So do it next year. Plan on taking the PMP exam next year. How many questions does the 2021 PMP exam have? No change whatsoever. It is 200 questions and you have 4 hours. Okay, we have a question here that I'm bringing up. What if I take the current exam in December 2020 and fail my re-exam on January 2021? What if I take the current exam December and fail? Okay, so I'm not quite sure I understand this question correctly. Are you asking, what if I fail this year? Can I take the same exam next year? Is that it? Maybe if you could.
Yes, that's the question. That's
okay.
The question.
Yeah.
That's the question.
Yeah. So if you fail your exam this year and you have to retake it next year, you are going to have to take the new exam. Okay. The last changeover happened in about 2017, 2018, and I know of one single exception to this rule, right? You fail the old exam, you must take the new exam once the date has moved forward. The only reason why this person, it was a woman, was allowed to retake it is because all the computers at the training center, I think she took it a day before everything changed over, all the computers at the training center completely failed and crashed. And she failed the old exam, no fault of hers, so PMI allowed her to retake the old exam, even in the new world. Okay. Are there new question types? Yes, there are new question types. Today, the PMP exam consists only of multiple choice question. 1 question, 4 answers, A, B, C, D. Please choose the one that is most appropriate to this particular question. There are now also multiple correct questions. So this is no longer radio buttons, this is checkboxes. So you have a question, it'll say, here are 5 potential answers. Please select 2. Or please select 3, right? And then you have to click, 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 choose the 1, the 3 or the 2 that apply. They're drag and drop, so you have to drag things on the screen into, maybe there's a process and you have to put the steps of the process in the correct order. There are fill in the blank questions, like the abbreviation for work breakdown structure is ... and then you have to type in WBS. Okay. And there are hotspot questions as well. You see a graphic on the screen, maybe an S-curve, and the question is, where is most money spent in this? And then you have to point to and click to the correct area in this S-curve where most of the money is being spent. Can I take a break during the exam? Yeah, there is in fact a mandatory break. Between 85 to 90 questions, they're not really all that clear about when it exactly happens. So around 85 to 90 questions, the system will automatically tell you it is now time to take a break. And then you submit those 90 questions and say, okay, I'm done with those. Then you can take a break, and then you come back, and then you take the other 110 or so questions. Why does PMI do this? Simple. You can now take the exam at home. Again, I think we'll look at that later on. And imagine if I had to sit here for 4 hours. If you do this during the exam, you have just failed the PMP exam. Okay, get up at home, just like that. You have failed your PMP exam. So you cannot go to the bathroom. So what PMI has done is, both at the center and at home, after about 90 questions, there is a 10-minute break. And that allows everybody at the center and at home to get up, go to the bathroom, come back, sit down, and then take part 2. Obviously, they don't want you during that break to open up the PMBOK guide and then go back and fix answers to your first 90 questions. Once you have submitted the 90 questions, you cannot make a change. And while you are in the 90 questions, you cannot look forward. So it's really a 2-part exam. Part 1, view it, answer it, submit it. Then you take part 2, view, answer, submit. And that's the complete exam. And yeah. Oh, there we go. That's the question that was just asked. If I fail in 2020, can I retake the old exam in 2021? No, you cannot. New exam only in 2021. Yeah, I'm already PMP certified. Do I have to recertify because of all of this? Nope. Once a PMP, you are always a PMP. Well, sort of. You know about PDUs, right? That's where the next question comes up. I'm already PMP certified. Are PDUs changing in any way? No, they are not. Once you are PMP certified, you have to earn 60 PDUs every 3 years. We have the talent triangle with the technical, leadership, and strategy and business sides. You have to earn 8 PDUs on each side, and all of that is still the same, no change. Please take a look at the CCR handbook if that all sounds new to you. Okay, and those were my prepared questions. Let me check the chat. There are no questions in the chat at this time. So if you have any questions that I haven't yet answered, please do go ahead and type them into the chat box, and I will be happy to answer them for you. Okay, and now let's delve a little bit deeper into several aspects of the PMP exam. And we're starting out with the PMP exam content outline, the ECO. And we have to start this with a clear delineation, with a clear statement. The PMP exam is not a test of the PMBOK guide. You don't know how many PMP instructors are not aware of this simple, easy fact. The PMP exam is not a test of the PMBOK guide. There are still instructors out there who just teach the PMBOK guide and think that's enough to pass the PMP exam. That is not the case. The questions on the PMP exam are instead based and mapped back to the exam content outline. And the exam content outline is what changes in 2021. And based on this new exam content outline, PMI has also developed and is delivering the new PMP exam. So the PMP exam content outline, it defines and describes what is on the exam. And if it's not in the exam content outline, if there is no description of something in, let's assume Agile weren't mentioned in the exam content outline, then PMI could not ask about Agile on the exam. But Agile now is mentioned in the new exam content outline, which is why they can ask 50% of the questions about Agile. In the current PMP exam content outline, Agile is not mentioned. So PMI only asks very few here and there, little hybrid questions here and there. But there is no focus on Agile in the current exam content outline. It consists of domains, it consists of tasks, and it consists of enablers. And we'll take a look at that a little bit later on. But a domain is defined as the high-level knowledge area that is essential to the practice of project management. A task, that's the underlying responsibilities of a project manager within each of these domains, okay? So within the people domain, you know, there are certain tasks that we have to do. We have to lead these people. We have to build a team and all of that. Those are the tasks. And then the enablers, they illustrate examples of the work that is associated with this task. We'll jump into that in just a second. So what are the three domains? I mentioned them previously. They are people, process, and business environment. There are 14 tasks in the people domain, and 42% of the questions on the exam will be about people and managing teams and those kind of things. The process domain has 17 tasks, and 50% of the questions are about processes. This maps pretty nicely to today's PMBOK guide and all the processes that you see in there. Then brand new, there's the business environment, 4 to 5 tasks. In the exam content outline, there are 4 tasks, but in the training materials that PMI has provided, there are 5 tasks. So we reached out to PMI and said, is it 4 or 5? And we have not heard back from them. Actually, that's been over 6 weeks. I should follow up with PMI. And we have 8% of the questions come from business environment. And as I have mentioned earlier, you know, out of those 100% of the questions, 50% of the questions are going to be about predictive questions and 50% about agile. Let me read you a quote here, because PMI writes as follows: about half of the examination will represent predictive project management approaches, and the other half will represent agile or hybrid approaches. Predictive, agile, and hybrid approaches will be found throughout the three domain areas and are not isolated by any particular domain or task. So they can ask you an agile question about people, they can ask you an agile question about process, and they can ask you a hybrid question about business environment. So this is just a wild mix, so to speak. Right. Let's take a look at a sample task and an enabler. This is an example of this task and several of the enablers that go with it. This particular task is task 2 from domain 1. So this is a task from the people domain. So when you lead a team, that is your task, and all the sub-bullets are the enablers. So setting a clear vision and a mission, that will enable you to lead a team. If you support and diversity and inclusion as you're leading the team, that will enable you to lead the team. If you value servant leadership, that will enable you to lead the team. So now you understand where the term enablers comes from, right? So if you determine an appropriate leadership style, that enables you to lead the team, and so on. And then I believe there are 2 more actually enablers that are listed in the official exam content outline. They just didn't fit onto the screen here unless I made the font really small. So inspire, motivate, and influence team members and stakeholders enables you to lead the team. And then analyzing team member and stakeholder influence will enable you to lead the team. So all these sub-bullets will enable you to perform the task in the appropriate domain of the exam content outline. And remember, all questions on the PMP exam are mapped to these tasks, to the domains, and of course also to the enablers. So PMI will have questions on the exam that talk about servant leadership. And they talk about servant leadership in predictive environments, in agile environments, in hybrid environments. So you have to have a good understanding of all of that, which is why I'm saying, yes, the 2021 exam will be more difficult than the current exam is. So much for our first aspect, the exam content outline. Now let's take a look at the second aspect, the PMI Authorized Training Partner Program, ATP. Okay. This program means that anyone who is part of this program receives an endorsement from PMI, promotion on the PMI website. By sheer coincidence, yesterday I saw the first official published list from PMI. As of yesterday, there are 266 companies around the world who are currently part of this ATP program. You may have heard of the REP program, the Registered Education Provider program. That is going away completely. And if you want to become an ATP, you have to reapply and become an ATP. As an ATP, you have access to turnkey content, and by this, PMI means that you are allowed and required actually to use the PMI authorized PMP exam prep materials. This is the course, the PMP exam prep course that PMI has developed. My company, for example, we are an ATP, which means we are required to teach only the PMI authorized PMP exam prep course to our students starting January 2nd. At the same time, PMI has also initiated an instructor training. So I, as a PMP instructor, I have gone through a 2-day virtual training with PMI, train-the-trainer training, and I am now officially a badged PMI instructor. And that's the last thing, badges. I believe I have an example of these badges in just a moment. I've only talked about companies here, but some PMI chapters are also pursuing to become PMI ATP themselves. In the list yesterday, I looked and I saw only about 3 or 4 chapters around the world who have already pursued and become an ATP themselves. Laszlo, question to you. Is the Budapest, the Hungarian chapter, going to be pursuing becoming an ATP themselves, or have you not yet discussed that?
Thanks very much. This is a very interesting question. To be honest with you, in the next coming 6 to 10 months, we have no plan, but you never know. The reason why I'm saying that, because we used to have one registered education provider here in Hungary, and now we do have three ATPs already, and the 4th one is coming. So we have plenty of ATPs at the moment.
All right, thank you. That would explain it. Yes, yes, badges. There we go. These are the badges. Okay, so the one on the left, that is a badge for a authorized training partner. So this is the badge that my company received from PMI, and the one on the right is for the instructor. That's the badge that I personally received. The only difference is, maybe you can see it there. On the right side, there is an orange instructor underneath it, and on the left-hand side, it doesn't say anything. So if you want to make sure that you are receiving the official PMI materials, then make sure that whatever provider you use and where you get your training from displays these badges on their website together with the course. In most cases that I've seen, you can actually click on this as well. Then it takes you over to the official badging website. And there's a verify button. You click on the verify, and then it tells you, yes, this was issued by PMI. This is the company name, and it was issued here. It expires there. So, it's quite obvious that this is now the case, that this company is a ATP and that this person is an instructor. If you are interested more about the ATP program, please go to atp.pmi.org to read up about this. That's it for our second aspect. Let's move on to our third aspect, and this is the PMI Authorized PMP exam prep course. Yes, PMI has decided to develop its own PMP exam prep courseware. Why have they done that? According to PMI's research, 4 out of 5 customers, PMI's customers, feel that it is important to be taught PMI developed content. So in other words, people taking the PMP exam, they did a survey, they said 4 out of 5 said, yeah, I would have loved to be able to take a course from PMI, not just from anybody out there. Okay. So what does this exam prep course look like? It is PMI developed. It is a 5-day course. This does not mean Monday to Friday. We are currently running a course that started last Saturday, and it's a 5-Saturday course. I've also seen companies that are offering this in 2 weeks, Monday to Friday in the morning. So, Monday this morning, this week Monday, and then next week Monday, you are just there in the morning. They also offer them in afternoons. It has to be instructor-led. That is a major requirement by PMI. All courses must be live. So just like now, as you are watching me here live, either virtual live or in classroom. Recording are no longer permitted. So you can no longer find a PMP exam prep course, the official PMP exam prep course, recorded and watch it on the bus, for example, as you are commuting to work in the morning. You have to spend 5 days in the classroom with your instructor, or rather 35 hours. I've also seen ATPs out there who offer this as a 4-day class. So 4 times 9 hours, something like that. Okay. And it must be delivered by an authorized trainer through an authorized training partner. Okay, so I'm an authorized trainer. I cannot just turn around now and say, well, I have the materials, I'm just going to teach this. No, not permitted. I have to work together with a company, an authorized training partner, and only that company is permitted to schedule and offer the new course, and I can then deliver the course as a trainer through that company. Okay. And why does PMI do this again? This is because of another piece of research. 9 out of 10 PMI customers state that they look for PMI-approved instructors when they are searching for PMP exam prep and training. So now, since PMI has this official PMP training, train-the-trainer course, now they have officially approved instructors, of whom I am one. Are there any other instructors, badged instructors on the line? Please type into the chat who you are. So get that. All right. What is the course content? What does it look like? It is a course that is divided into 5 lessons. And these 5 lessons don't necessarily represent day 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is just the way that it is structured. It begins with lesson 1, creating a high-performing team. Then lesson 2 is starting the project. Lesson 3 is doing the work. Lesson 4, keeping the team on track. And lesson 5, keeping the business in mind. And with lesson 5, you can clearly see that there is a direct correlation from this lesson to domain 3 of the ECO, the business environment, right? So lesson 5 covers everything that you need to know in order to answer questions about this third domain on the exam correctly. Now, if you are a Premier ATP, they have multiple levels and Premier is at the very top, you will also receive 200 cloned questions. PMI calls them cloned questions. Our understanding and best guess is that these are questions that are from the real PMP exam that have been retired and taken out, probably massaged a little bit, and then they are provided to the Premier ATPs so that they can again give them to their students. So in other words, PMI has given me, my company, these 200 questions, and candidates, students who sign up for our PMP exam prep course next year, they will also receive these 200 questions. We have added those to our exam simulator so that they can answer these 200 questions as they are using our exam simulator online. What does the material look like? Very traditional presentation slides. As you can see here, a lot of bullet points. So this is the style that PMI has chosen, and this is my critique to PMI. In my perspective, this is not a modern and engaging look and feel and delivery approach that should be used today. To me, this is very 2003 maybe, where bullet points were still appropriate. To me, this type of delivery is no longer appropriate. But that is my only critique that I have in regards to these training materials. This is version 1. I hope that PMI takes this critique and gives us something more engaging and visually pleasing going forward. Okay, next aspect, the strategy and training materials for the new exam. If you are preparing for the PMP exam, then as your foundation in 2021, you are going to want to take the PMI Authorized course. Okay, so that is your foundation. You're going to have to take that course and in order to prepare for the exam. So what if you already have taken, like, for example, you've taken my course last year, you've never taken the exam, and then you want to go take the exam in 2021. Still possible. You don't have to take the PMI Authorized course if you already have the 35 contact hours. But if you want to be prepared well for the exam, then obviously participating in the official PMI Authorized course through an ATP training partner, that would be the way to go. Okay. Now, the next two levels, they apply no matter if you've taken the PMI authorized course or the other courses. So if you have taken another course already, you still need to read the PMBOK guide and the Agile Practice Guide. That's the APG there. PMI has also released a list of 10 or 12. So now they, for the PMI ACP exam, you may notice that they have a list of reference books that they have published. And now for the PMP exam, PMI is finally publishing a list of 10 or 12 reference books that they use for the exam. So what they do is when they develop questions, they will make sure that each question maps back to at least 2 of these 10 or 12 reference books. Okay, but the 2 most important ones are still the PMBOK guide and the Agile Practice Guide. You don't necessarily have to read the other 10 or so, because the material that you need to know is delivered to you as part of the authorized training course. So foundation, the course, then on top of that, you need to get the PMBOK guide, study that and read the Agile Practice Guide as well. And then on top of that, wrong way around. On top of that again, you want to make sure that all of this is delivered to you by an authorized training partner, that the instructor is badged and is an official PMI approved trainer. And from my perspective, this is the most important piece, even though it's small at the top right. You want to use a simulator. Okay, so if you do not use a simulator, the PMP exam, when I took it, it was in 2004. Okay, you could study the PMBOK guide, you could take a course, you could learn, you would take a few sample questions, you would take the exam. It was relatively easy to pass. The PMP exam has gotten a lot harder over the last few years, and it's getting harder even in 2021. If you do not use a simulator, if you don't apply your experience and the theoretical knowledge that you have taken and built up during your studies, and then bring all of that together and apply it to good sample questions, you are going to have a hard time to passing your exam on your first attempt. So my recommendation is get a simulator. I frankly don't care which simulator you get, but do get one. That is one of the most important and good investments that you can make for your PMP exam journey. Okay, here is the answer to my question. How many reference books are there? There are 10 reference books. Okay. Hopefully by next time when I give this presentation, I remember that there are 10 and not 12. Here we go. So we have the Agile Practice Guide there and the Guide to the Project Management Body of Knowledge, 6th edition. Yes, remember what I said at the beginning. The 7th edition is not out yet. It is still the 6th edition. And frankly, even if the 7th edition comes out, the 6th edition isn't suddenly obsolete, in particular because the 7th edition is also going away from the process focus that we have today to more a principles-based PMBOK guide. So the definitions, the information that you find in the PMBOK guide 6th edition is still going to be valid in a year or two, even if the 7th edition is out. So to me, that is still good and valid knowledge to have. And then all the others, and the reason why the PMBOK guide here is in turquoise and in blue is because to me, this is still the most important reference book. If you don't study this, if you don't know what PMI says in the PMBOK guide, you will have a hard time passing your exam. That's why I've highlighted it here. Okay. The other books here, I'm not going to be talking to these at all, frankly. Just want you to see them. There's a Scrum book here, right? Technology projects are there. Managerial process, the 100 tips and techniques for getting the job done, right? So all of these books here are now official reference books for the PMP exam. You can read them, but you don't have to read them because the PMI authorized training course will teach you what you need to know. The next aspect we want to talk about is Pearson VUE. The testing is either in the center or online. So if you are a PMP candidate especially in these times, you can decide, I want to take the PMP exam at home. I do not want to go to a testing center and put on a mask like this here and sit around for 2 hours. Right? And now I can't take it off, I bet. Oh, there we go. So yes, you want to take it at home. Here we go. On the right-hand side, this is the press release that PMI published back in April 2020. In 2019, I asked the head of the PMI certifications department, you know, you're offering the PMI ACP exam online. Will you ever offer the PMP exam as well? And she just chuckled and shook her head and said, no, we're not going to do that. The reason for this is simply fraud. There are too many people out there who are cheating on the PMP exam. And I've spoken to other people from PMI about this. And the length to which some people and organizations go to steal real PMP exam questions from the actual exam is incredible. I mean, the technology they employ is just horrendous. And so PMI is constantly fighting that. But once COVID-19 and the pandemic came around, they realized nobody can take the PMP exam at this time. We have to offer it. Okay. There are many positive and negative experiences. I've seen people who said, I took the exam yesterday, it was a breeze, I logged on, I was able to answer the questions, there was a break after 90, no problem, hit end, I was done. Okay, and then others have the worst experience that you can imagine. The computer doesn't work, even though they did the technical check beforehand, and they're on call with their support for 2 hours, and then, you know, you've been on the call for 2 hours, and then you take a 4-hour exam, and maybe they fail, or they're being failed just for doing this, right? Looking to the side, and they're being failed because of doing that. So all of this, you know, positive and negative experiences. Cheating, within 2 weeks of PMI offering the exam with the ability to take it at home, there were pictures of screens that were circulating on Facebook. So I've seen, so somebody was hiding probably here behind, you know, my room divider here at some point, and then they would take pictures of my screen as I am taking the PMP exam, all 200 questions, and they would be publishing those on Facebook. It's absolutely horrendous what people are doing there. And PMI is taking measures to avoid that. Yes, so there is an on-screen whiteboard only. Because you're taking it at home, you're not allowed to have anything on your desk. Right now, my desk is a mess. I would not be allowed to take the PMP exam, but I'm also not allowed to have a pen and paper on my desk. Yet at the center, they give you pen and paper so that you can take notes. So if you go to a center, you know, there's a benefit for you to go to the center. There's an advantage, you know, and you're at a disadvantage at home. So PMI said, okay, no more pen and paper at the center, on-screen whiteboard only to take notes. And that kind of works like Microsoft Paint. So if you know how Microsoft Paint works, just a whiteboard that you can type into and draw into in order to keep track of your thoughts. And we've already mentioned this. There is the mandatory break. You take 90 questions, then you submit that, then you have a 10-minute break, and then you answer the other remaining 110 questions there. Okay, good. Moving on. These were the 5 aspects that I wanted to look at. Reminder, if you have any questions, please do type them into the chat box. Be happy to answer them for you. Take action. I have 2 take actions. I have a take action for instructors, and I also have a take action for students. Okay. First of all, if you are an instructor and you are interested in teaching the PMP exam in 2021, then you have to become PMI approved. Okay, there's no way around it. And you cannot just get PMI approved on your own. Only an authorized training partner can submit you to PMI for consideration. Okay. We've submitted 10 or 12, something like that. At this point, everybody was accepted. I need your resume, PMI number, PMP number, those three things. And then we can submit that to PMI. And then we have to pay like $600 so that you can then participate in the Train the Trainer course. The PMI makes it clear that as an instructor, you must be PMP certified and you must have Agile experience. How do you prove that you have Agile experience? I am not PMI ACP. If you are PMI ACP certified as well, you're good to go. If you are CSM, a certified Scrum Master, I am a certified Scrum Master, you are good to go. If you have just participated in multiple projects, Agile focused, put those in your resume. Adjust your resume accordingly, show that you have Agile experience and what you've done. And, I've worked in the role as a Scrum Master on this project, whatever, right? And if you have none of that, then PMI does offer make-up training, right? You can always go ahead and you can take a Scrum course or you can take an Agile course before you submit, and you can show that you have that appropriate experience. Once PMI approves you, then you have to take the Train the Trainer class from PMI, 2-day virtual training class that you can just watch at your own pace. At the end of that class, you have to answer 25 questions, multiple choice, and 5 days or so later, you will get the notification from PMI. It will send you an email with a badge. And once that is done, then the ATP again, the company that sponsored you, they have to buy a license from PMI for you. And then you will be able to access the digital versions of the new PMI course. And now that you have familiarized yourself with the course, you can start teaching that course again via an ATP. You as a trainer are not just allowed to bring together a group of people, charge them money and teach. The ATP, the company, has to do that for you. You are a trainer through that ATP and you're not allowed to do this on your own. So much for instructors out there. And we are always looking for instructors. So if you are an instructor who has not yet found somebody to sponsor, please do get in touch with me. All right, take action for students. Let's see. First of all, what you want to do is you want to look for the ATP badge. So when you look for the 2021 course, make sure that you are taking the official PMI authorized PMP exam prep course. Okay, that's very important because if you take something else, you are definitely not taking the officially approved course from PMI. And remember, PMI manages the PMP exam. They know what's on the exam. So, you can be pretty sure that the information that is part of that course is developed specifically to help you pass the exam. And no other course is, right? On top of that, as I mentioned earlier, you want to study the PMBOK guide. You want to study the Agile Practice Guide as well. And again, this is true even if you have previously taken a PMP exam prep course for the current exam. Okay, so if you're prepared for the current exam and you realize, you know what, I don't have enough time, I have to take it next year, then simply make sure that you have studied the PMBOK guide and that you have studied the Agile Practice Guide. You may also want to look into the Scrum Guide from the Scrum Alliance. You may want to look a little bit into other materials that are talking about Agile and hybrid, just to make sure that you cover your bases when it comes to understanding the knowledge that is Agile that you will have to know on the exam. And then most importantly, again, I cannot stress this more enough, use an exam simulator. At this point, I have seen 7 companies that are offering PMP exam simulators out there, and you want to get one of those in order to apply your knowledge, your theoretical knowledge, your experience to these PMP exam sample questions. Like I said, in the past, these questions were a little bit, memory-based. If you remembered how the processes flowed, if you remembered the inputs, tools, techniques, and outputs, you could sort of squeak by and pass the exam. Now the questions are a lot more scenario-based. They're very situational. And the questions, 3 of these could be correct. Okay. All right. I can see there is a poll that is going up at this point. I don't speak Hungarian, so I'm not going to answer it. And last but not least, obviously, if you do all of this, if you take the official course, if you study the PMBOK guide and Agile, if you use an exam simulator, at that point, you should have no trouble then also to pass your exam. So for whatever reason, it says take action for students 1 on this slide. So you would expect that the next slide says take action for students 2, but it's actually already the end of the presentation. I don't know why there is a 1 on that slide. That was it from me. I hope I was able to answer all the questions that you have. I guess I did, because very few questions came through on the chat at this time. Okay. Laszlo, do you have any questions for me?
Wow. Yes. Thank you very much. First of all, wonderful presentation. I really like it.
Thank you.
And the personal reason is pretty simple, because back in 2009, so 11 years ago, when I prepared myself for the PMP exam, when I went to bed, I was listening to your PM Prepcast. When I was riding my bicycle, listening to Cornelius, and all the time. So it's very good to hear your voice. Real time.
Yeah.
Cornelius, there are a couple of questions in the chat window, so I would really appreciate.
I don't see them.
Yes. Okay.
That's odd. Yeah, my chat window is blank. Yeah.
Okay. All right, then I'm going to go through these questions very quickly.
Yes, please.
Okay. Okay, first one comes from Zorana. Okay, just a second, because so many other questions are coming in. So question what we just received. Okay, what about RMC, for example? Are they required to become an ATP as well if they wish to continue offering the PMP prep courses?
No. So first of all, I think people, when you are sending your question, if you send it to all attendees, if you choose that, then I might probably also see it. I think that's probably what happened. They sent it to the host, and then it went only to you. Okay, so no, RMC, Rita Mulcahy's company, has chosen not to become an ATP. So they are continuing to offer their PMP exam prep courses and also their 10th edition of the book outside of the ATP program. So they, if you wish, they have gone rogue, right? They are now mavericks, and they are outside of that. PMI is still accepting training from other providers that are not ATP at this time. The reason for this is that the PMP exam is an ANSI standard, and ANSI says you may offer your own training course, but you may not require candidates to take only your training course. So at this time, PMI has decided to stay with ANSI and not leave ANSI, and therefore PMI is required to accept training from everyone. And maybe sometime down the road in the future, PMI is going to go, okay, we're there. We are now going to leave the ANSI standard. We are now going to require everyone to take the official course, and no other courses are accepted at this time. But at the moment, yes, any course that you take is valid in 2021, but there is only one approved course.
Mm-hmm. Okay, the next one comes in. The question is, do I have to retake the prep course in the new format if I have already done it earlier to be able to apply for the new exam? I think you already answered
Yes,
this
that's
question.
the same answer.
The same
No.
question.
Yeah. If you've taken a PMP exam prep course in the past, does not expire.
Okay. Peter Shimon is asking the following: shall I learn the tasks and their enablers themselves for the new exam, or and so on?
What I recommend that you do is that you print the exam content outline, that you take a highlighter, green, orange, and red, and that you go through them once and highlight everything that you're going to go. I've done this. I have experience in that. I do not have any experience in this. I have a little bit of experience in that. And at the end, you will have a document that is green, yellow, and red, or green, orange, and red, whichever one you prefer. And in that way, you can look at this and you can go, okay, I know where I'm lacking experience. I know where I may also be lacking technical know-how. And then during the training and during your studies, you can focus on that. You do not have to know the domains, the tasks, and the enablers by heart. But it's a good exercise to do just to understand where you are at.
Next one, Flora is asking this. With the new exam content, what is the difference between the ACP and the PMP exam?
PMI has made a clear statement and said the ACP is not going away. In my perspective, I don't know if you've ever heard of the term chickens and pigs, right? That's an agile term. The chicken delivers, the egg for your breakfast, right? It is involved, kind of, it provides an egg for your breakfast. But the pig is dedicated, right? The pig has to die. It's really there in order for you to have the bacon with the egg. So, from my perspective, if you are taking the PMP exam, you are a chicken. You are somebody who, participates in agile projects. You know a little bit about it. You understand how agile works. But if you're taking the PMI ACP exam, you're an agilist. You're really in that world. Everything that you do is agile, Scrum, and any of these other frameworks that there may be. So you're really highly focused on agile and Scrum only. Okay, that's the major difference. PMI has also released recently the roadmap to business agility, I think it is called. I've only seen it once. And the PMI ACP exam is clearly part of that. Disciplined Agile is also part of that roadmap right there. So the PMI ACP is not going away. Okay, got another question here that showed up on my screen. Great presentation. Okay, thank you. Just for clarification, is the official course attendance and completion a prerequisite to taking the exam? No, it is not. It is helpful. It is recommended because only the official course will really teach you what's going to be on the exam.
Okay, and probably the last one. Just a second. Is there a prep course planned on the 2020 and 2021 PMP exam Delta only? So the question is whether you are going to run any training sessions like that yourself when you are going to compare the 2021 PMP content.
Frankly, no, because the effort to do something like that is just too great. How long would something like this have a lifetime? This is, right now it's important. It's maybe important until February of next year. Starting March of next year, people don't really worry about the changeover anymore. This is important right now, but the validity of something like that is going down very quickly. What we are going to do is we're going to give some recommendations in sort of, you've studied for the 2020, you didn't have enough time to get ready. Now what? What do I have to do now in order to get to the 2021 exam? Right? So we'll have an article about that, but we're not going to do an actual training for this.
Okay, I think there are no further questions. Cornelius, wonderful job again. Thank you very much. I really appreciate all your time and effort. And ladies and gentlemen, the reason why Cornelius is with us, because I'd like to share with you a couple of other things also. So probably you noticed that the Art of Projects conference took place last Thursday. This was the very first online conference organized by PMI Budapest Hungarian chapter. And I was so excited because Cornelius and his company supported our conference, and he was one of the professional partners and actual sponsors. So again, Cornelius, thank you very much for that.
You're welcome.
And guys, if you do have any questions about Cornelius and his services, or if you would like to know more about how you can buy his products, please reach out to me, or probably Cornelius, you can share the URL where people can read a bit more about your company.
Wait.
Okay. Because again, I do have my personal experience using your product. I really liked it back then, more than 10 years ago. I actually bought an iPod just because of your product, and I really liked it. So this was part of my preparation course, and still just recently we ran a PMP prep course. I mean, PMI Budapest Hungarian chapter ran a PMP prep course, and we purchased the training material from Cornelius' company. Right. So.
I have just typed in 2 URLs for you. The first URL that you see there, that is the website PM Prepcast. That's the course that Laszlo took many years ago. PM Prepcast, that is the place to go if you are looking for information about the 2021 exam. It is not yet on the front page. Look under the PMP menu and go to the 2021 link there. And the second one, if you are already PMP certified and you are looking for PDUs, then please go to the pmpodcast.com/PDU. That's the podcast that I've been doing since 2005. And you can get 60 free PDUs at zero cost from that website, pmpodcast.com, pm-podcast.com/PDU. Thank you, Laszlo.
Thank you very much, Cornelius. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is the end of this presentation. As usual, this is a PDU eligible session. If you provided your PMI ID, I'm going to download the report from the WebEx platform, and I'm going to upload everything to the CCRS system, so you don't need to worry about it. But still, I'm going to share with you the PDU claim code. Without further ado, thank you again. Dankeschön, and I wish you a wonderful day. Bye-bye.
Until next time.
Bye.